The Galactic Federation Academy perched on the edge of the Chrysian Nebula, serving as the premier institution for training the galaxy's future leaders, warriors, and thinkers. Species from distant star systems congregated here, each contributing their best young minds, all except one, humanity, still a newcomer to the interstellar community. Jake Patel navigated the sprawling campus, a fusion of technology and alien architecture that spiraled and twisted into shapes no human architect would dare conceive. Despite the awe-inspiring surroundings, Jake's first weeks at the academy had been anything but majestic. His human limitations in speed, strength, and agility were glaringly apparent, a stark contrast to his classmates. During the practical sessions in the holographic simulation rooms, Jake consistently ranked at the bottom. Whether it was the Krylorian who could process thoughts at the speed of light, or the Ylgreth, whose muscular tendrils could manipulate multiple tools at once, Jake's human physiology seemed outclassed in every conceivable way. His classmates, a mix of scaled, feathered, and luminescent beings, were swift to remind him of his standings, often relegating him to the role of spectator rather than participant. "Another rough day, Jake?" asked Lyra, a Taurian whose empathetic abilities were as renowned as her tactical skills. Her azure eyes radiated genuine concern, a rarity in the competitive atmosphere of the academy. "Yeah," Jake sighed, adjusting his translator device. "I just can't seem to keep up. I'm starting to think humans might be out of their league here." "Don't let the scores dishearten you," Lyra replied, her voice a calming melody. "Scores aren't everything. Besides, every species has its strengths and weaknesses. Yours might not be as obvious." As they spoke, an elderly figure watched from a distance. Ilara, a member of an ancient and revered alien race, observed Jake with interest. Her species had once been champions of the Federation, but had since receded into roles of advisors and mentors, their battle days long behind them. Ilara approached Jake, her steps silent and graceful on the metallic floor. "Young human, may I have a word?" Her voice was soft, yet carried a weight that commanded respect. Jake nodded, curiosity piqued. "Of course, ma'am." "Walk with me," Ilara said, leading him away from the bustling crowd. "I've watched you struggle, yet you persist. That is commendable. But perhaps you're focusing on the wrong strengths. Have you considered that what makes you different might also make you valuable?" Jake listened intently as Ilara spoke of potential untapped, hinting at abilities no test at the academy could measure. Her words were cryptic, yet they sparked a flicker of hope within him. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as out of place as he felt. As they parted ways, Jake felt a newfound resolve. He might not have known his true strengths yet, but with Ilara's guidance he was willing to dive deep into the unknown to uncover what truly made a human special in this vast, competitive galaxy. The journey would be daunting, but for the first time since he had arrived, he was ready to face it head-on. The holographic simulation room hummed with energy, its walls pulsating with light as scenarios flickered in and out of existence. Today's test was particularly grueling, a tactical combat simulation against a virtual enemy known for its unpredictable warfare tactics. Jake's classmates, their bodies adapted for quick reflexes and strategic thinking, navigated the challenges with a level of finesse that seemed almost effortless. Jake, however, lagged behind, his human senses overwhelmed by the rapid pace and complexity of the simulation. As the scenario ended, his score blinked at the bottom of the leaderboard, a glaring reminder of his struggles. The room filled with the light chatter and laughter of his peers, none of them malicious but all painfully aware of his performance. "Seems like you could use some extra training, human," quipped a reptilian classmate, his voice echoing slightly under his breath mask. The comment, meant as a light jest, stung more than it should have. As the crowd dispersed, Jake remained behind, his gaze fixed on the empty simulation space, the scenes of his repeated failures replaying in his mind. It was then that he felt a presence beside him. Turning, he found Ilara watching the lingering after-images of the simulation. "You struggle because you fight like them," Ilara observed quietly, her tone neutral yet thoughtful. "You try to match their speed, mimic their tactics, but you are not them. Have you ever considered that your approach might be what needs to change, not your abilities?" Jake considered her words, a mix of confusion and curiosity knitting his brow. "I don't understand. If I can't keep up, how am I supposed to compete?" Ilara smiled, a slow, deliberate expression that seemed to hold centuries of knowledge. "Come with me. There is something I want to show you." Without waiting for his response, she turned and walked toward the exit, expecting him to follow. Curiosity piqued, Jake hurried after her. They navigated the academy's labyrinthine corridors until they reached a secluded area rarely frequented by students, a garden dome that replicated the environments of Alara's homeworld. The air was filled with sweet fragrances, and bioluminescent plants cast a soft glow, painting everything in hues of blue and green. "This is where I come to think," Alara said as they walked among the alien flora. "And perhaps where you will begin to learn." "Learn what exactly?" Jake asked, his voice tinged with both skepticism and hope. "Learn to use what you have as a human. Your species is renowned not for brute strength or quick reflexes, but for creativity, resilience, and adaptability. These are your weapons, just as scales and speed are theirs." Alara paused beside a pond, its surface mirroring the ethereal lights above. "Watch," she instructed, tossing a small, smooth stone onto the water's surface. The stone skipped across the pond effortlessly, creating ripples that spread in expanding circles. "See, sometimes the lightest touch can have the widest impact. You don't need to overpower the water to affect it. Similarly, you don't need to overpower your opponents to overcome them. You need to learn how to create ripples in the right place at the right time." Jake watched the ripples fade, Alara's metaphor settling in. It was a perspective he had never considered, conditioned as he was to measure strength in the most straightforward terms. "Will you teach me?" he asked, a newfound eagerness in his tone. Alara's nod was slow, almost imperceptible. "Yes, I will teach you to see not just with your eyes but with your mind, and to act not just with strength but with wisdom. Your training begins now, Jake, not to be the best among them, but to be the best of what you are." As they started with the basic exercises Alara outlined, Jake felt a shift in his understanding of what it meant to compete. It was not about matching others, but about mastering oneself. With each lesson, he felt a step closer to tapping into a power he hadn't known he possessed, the true power of being human. The next morning, Jake arrived at the garden dome before the first light of the distant sun touched the horizon. Alara was already there, her silhouette ethereal against the backdrop of luminescent flora. Today marked the beginning of their secret sessions, a dedicated time for Jake to hone his uniquely human skills under Alara's guidance. "Your training will not be easy," Alara began, her voice echoing softly through the tranquil space. "It will require you to think differently, to see beyond the conventional strategies taught here at the Academy." They started with exercises designed to enhance Jake's perception and adaptability. Alara crafted scenarios in which Jake had to rely solely on his instincts and wit to navigate through complex problems that had no clear technological solutions. One exercise involved a simulation of a dense forest with hidden dangers. Unlike his peers who might use enhanced senses or physical prowess to navigate through it, Jake had to use his judgment, reasoning out where dangers might lie and using his surroundings to his advantage. "You must learn to trust your intuition," Alara advised as Jake paused at a fork in the simulation. "Consider the options, but also listen to what your gut tells you." With each session, Jake discovered aspects of his thinking that he had never utilized before. He learned to anticipate outcomes, to strategize on the fly, and to use his creativity to manipulate scenarios in his favor. As weeks passed, their early morning meetings became the part of his day Jake looked forward to most. Not only was he learning to embrace his human traits, but he was also forming a bond with Alara, whose wisdom and patience were limitless. However, keeping his progress a secret from his classmates proved challenging. During team exercises and simulations at the Academy, he had to restrain himself from using the new techniques Alara taught him, sticking to standard human approaches so as not to arouse suspicion. One evening, after a particularly intense training session, Alara and Jake sat by the pond, watching the reflections of the stars above ripple across the water. "You are making remarkable progress, Jake," Alara remarked, her tone filled with pride. "How do you feel about the training?" Jake pondered for a moment before answering. "I feel stronger, not in the way I expected, like lifting more or running faster but stronger inside. I see things differently now. It's like I'm learning to be more human than ever before." Alara nodded. "That is exactly the goal. In a galaxy where every species shines with its unique strength, humanity's power lies in its ingenuity and spirit. You are learning to wield those strengths as your weapons." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert from Jake's communicator, a message from the Academy announcing the upcoming inter-class competition known as the Gauntlet. It was a test of not only physical and technological skill, but also of strategy and adaptability. Alara's eyes twinkled with a mix of anticipation and challenge. The gauntlet will be your opportunity to blend what you have learned with the conventional training of the academy. You will participate not just to compete, but to truly test yourself and reveal the extent of your growth. Jake felt a surge of nervous excitement. The gauntlet was his chance to prove, not just to his classmates, but to himself, that his unique human capabilities were indeed a form of strength to be reckoned with. As he left the dome that evening, the weight of the upcoming challenge sat heavy on his shoulders. But so too did a sense of readiness. He was no longer the student who feared being left behind. He was a pioneer of a new path, one that might just lead to unprecedented success at the academy. The announcement of the gauntlet had sent a ripple of excitement through the Galactic Federation Academy. It was a prestigious event that pitted class against class in a series of complex challenges designed to test a myriad of skills from combat to puzzle solving. For many, it was a chance to shine, and for the teachers to evaluate the potential of their students under real pressure. As Jake walked through the bustling corridors, filled with the noise of enthusiastic strategy discussions and the clatter of combat practice in the distance, he couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and excitement. This was his chance to put all his secret training with Alara to the test in a real competitive environment. He joined his class team in the strategy room, where a large holographic display of the upcoming challenges flickered in the center. His classmates, a vibrant mix of species, each brought their unique strengths to the planning table, but their strategies often relied heavily on physical abilities and technological prowess, areas where Jake felt he lagged. All right, team, let's focus on maximizing our strengths. We need speed in the agility trials, strength in the combat simulations, and sharp minds for the strategy puzzles, instructed Thalia, a tactically brilliant but somewhat rigid Zenthian who was the unofficial leader of the group. Jake listened, but his mind raced with different ideas, the lessons from Alara urging him to think outside the conventional methods. When a pause in the conversation offered him a chance, he spoke up. What if we try something less conventional for the strategy puzzles? Maybe use misdirection or create innovative solutions rather than just going by the standard procedures, he suggested tentatively. His idea was met with mixed reactions. Some were curious, while others, including Thalia, seemed skeptical. Misdirection? This isn't a magic show, Jake. We need solid, proven strategies, not tricks, Thalia responded dismissively, her confidence in traditional methods unshaken. Despite the pushback, Jake's suggestion had caught the interest of Lyra, who had always been supportive. I think Jake might be onto something. Sometimes the unexpected approach can throw off the opponents. Why not incorporate some of his ideas into our strategy? It might give us an edge. Encouraged by Lyra's support, Jake elaborated on his thoughts, detailing how human history was full of instances where unconventional thinking had turned the tides in critical situations. His examples sparked more interest among some team members, and slowly, the skepticism gave way to a tentative acceptance to try some of his ideas in their strategy. As the preparations for the gauntlet progressed, Jake found himself more involved in planning sessions, his confidence bolstered by Alara's training. He started integrating small, subtle strategies that emphasized adaptability and creativity, hoping to surprise their competitors with the human element so often underestimated. The night before the gauntlet, the team gathered for a final review of their strategy. They had come to appreciate Jake's unique perspective, integrating it more fully into their approach. The team felt unified and ready, a blend of many species' strengths with a new, unpredictable element. As they left the strategy room, Thalia approached Jake, her demeanor softer than before. Jake, I was skeptical about your ideas, but I see now that you bring something valuable to our team. Let's make this a gauntlet to remember. Jake nodded, feeling a sense of pride and belonging he hadn't expected. The support from his team was more than he had hoped for, and with it came a surge of determination to prove that humanity's true power lay in its ingenuity and spirit. He walked back to his quarters under the starlit sky of the Academy's alien world, ready for the challenges ahead. Tomorrow, during the gauntlet, he would show that being the worst in the class had only been a part of his journey, not his destination. With the gauntlet looming, Jake's days were divided between rigorous secret sessions with Alara and the team's formal strategy meetings. The Academy's training grounds buzzed with anticipation as each class polished their skills, aiming to outshine the others. Under Alara's guidance, Jake explored the limits of human creativity and resilience. They met in the dim hours of the morning, where Alara crafted scenarios that pushed Jake to think not only quickly, but profoundly differently from his peers. Each exercise was a puzzle or a problem that didn't just need solving, It needed reimagining. Your mind must be agile, Jake, more so than your body, Alara instructed as she adjusted the parameters of a particularly tricky simulation involving negotiating an alliance among hostile alien tribes. Jake absorbed every lesson, his mind expanding with every challenge overcome. Alara's methods were unconventional by the Academy's standards, focusing less on direct confrontation and more on diplomacy, subterfuge, and psychological tactics. Meanwhile, during team meetings, Jake began to assert himself more, his confidence bolstered by his secret training. He proposed strategies that emphasized adaptability and psychological insight, which were initially met with skepticism but gradually gained traction as their effectiveness became apparent in practice simulations. One evening, as the team huddled around the holographic display, Jake introduced a complex maneuver designed to use an opponent's strength against them. "It's based on judo principles, using leverage rather than brute force," Jake explained. His teammates, intrigued by the novelty and simplicity of the idea, agreed to integrate it into their repertoire. The final days before the gauntlet were intense. Jake and his teammates simulated various scenarios, from zero-gravity combat to high-stakes negotiation puzzles. Each session honed their skills further and fused their diverse abilities into a cohesive strategy. Lyra, now a close ally, synergized her empathetic skills with Jake's human intuition, creating a formidable partnership that balanced the team's more aggressive tactics. The night before the gauntlet, the team gathered for a final briefing. They reviewed every plan, every contingency, ensuring everyone knew their role and how to adapt if things went awry. Jake looked around at his diverse teammates, once just classmates, now comrades united by a common goal. He felt a profound sense of camaraderie and responsibility, not just to perform well, but to embody the human qualities Alara had helped him harness. As they dispersed, Lyra pulled Jake aside. "No matter what happens tomorrow, you've already changed how we see things," she said, her voice earnest. "You've shown us that there's strength in thinking differently." Jake nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and nervous anticipation. "Thanks, Lyra. Let's go out there and show them what we're made of." They parted ways, each to their quarters to rest before the day of reckoning. Jake lay in his bed, the strategies and possibilities whirling through his mind. Tomorrow wasn't just another competition. It was his moment to prove that the worst in the class could reveal a power beyond what anyone expected. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, but for the idea that every species, every individual, had something unique to offer, something powerful in its own right. The day of the gauntlet dawned clear and bright, with the sprawling grounds of the Galactic Federation Academy transformed into a grand arena. Teams assembled, each radiating the colors and emblems of their species, creating a kaleidoscope of unity and rivalry. Jake's team, a mix of diverse beings, stood together, their nerves buzzing with the anticipation of the challenges ahead. As the opening ceremony concluded, the first challenge was announced. A complex labyrinth filled with physical and mental obstacles tailored to test the team's endurance and intelligence. Spectators filled the stands, their cheers echoing through the massive structure, providing a backdrop of vibrant noise. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline as he and his teammates entered the labyrinth. The walls were lined with sensors and traps, designed to adapt and respond to the strategies employed by the competitors. Remembering Alara's lessons, Jake encouraged his team to stay flexible and use their diverse strengths to their advantage. The first obstacle was a series of shifting walls that required quick physical agility. While his teammates used their superior physical abilities to navigate the maze, Jake focused on spotting patterns in the wall movements. His keen observation allowed him to guide his team through the fastest routes, saving precious time and avoiding the energy-draining detours that plagued other teams. As they progressed, the obstacles grew more complex, involving puzzles that required logical reasoning and technological interfacing. Here, Jake's human intuition for problem-solving shone brightly. He approached each puzzle with a creative mindset, bypassing cumbersome conventional solutions for more straightforward, innovative ones that puzzled onlookers but effectively propelled his team forward. Their performance was a blend of physical prowess and mental agility, leading them to emerge from the labyrinth with one of the top times. The crowd's reaction shifted from polite applause to genuine admiration, particularly from other human spectators who swelled with pride at Jake's unexpected prowess. With little time to rest, the next challenge was announced. A simulated diplomatic negotiation involving multiple alien factions, each with conflicting interests. The scenario was a test of patience, empathy, and strategic communication, areas where Jake's training with Alara prepared him to excel. As the simulation began, Jake stepped forward, taking a leading role. His task was to unify the factions with a peace treaty that addressed the core concerns of each party. Drawing on his human capacity for empathy and the diplomatic nuances Alara had taught him, Jake navigated the complex web of alien politics with surprising adeptness. His approach differed markedly from the more aggressive tactics of other teams. Instead of imposing solutions, Jake listened, adapted, and proposed compromises that slowly but surely won the respect and agreement of the simulated factions. His ability to relate and adapt his communication style to different species was key in forging a consensus that seemed impossible at the outset. By the time the sun began to set, marking the end of the day's events, Jake and his team were mentally exhausted but elated. They had not only met, but exceeded their own expectations, finishing the day among the top contenders. The scoreboard displayed their team's name in a position no one, not even Jake, had dared to hope for at the beginning of the competition. As they regrouped to debrief, the team's camaraderie was palpable. They exchanged congratulations and shared amazement at how well they had performed, largely thanks to Jake's leadership and unique strategies. "Your insights were invaluable today, Jake," Thalia admitted, her earlier skepticism replaced with respect. "You've shown us all how powerful different perspectives can be when embraced and applied correctly." Jake's smile was one of quiet satisfaction. He had proven not just to his team, but to the entire academy that the strengths of humanity were not to be underestimated. With one day left in the gauntlet, he felt ready to face whatever challenges came next, buoyed by the support of his teammates and the newfound respect they had earned together. As the final day of the gauntlet dawned, anticipation was high. Jake and his team were now seen not merely as participants, but as serious competitors. Their success so far had changed the way others viewed them, and even more so, how they viewed themselves. Today was about more than just competing. It was about cementing their newfound status. The day's challenge was designed to test the team's ability to work together under extreme pressure. Set in a virtual environment that mimicked a collapsing star system, the teams needed to coordinate their efforts to save civilizations, manage evacuations, and stabilize dying stars using advanced technology and critical problem-solving. As the scenario unfolded, chaos ensued. Teams scrambled, communications broke down, and plans fell apart under the relentless ticking of the clock. Jake's team, however, moved with a calmness that belied the intense pressure they were under. Jake directed their movements, his strategies clear and his commands concise, guiding them through the turmoil. At a critical juncture, when a direct approach seemed doomed to fail, Jake called for a bold maneuver that hinged entirely on human creativity and the flexible thinking he had honed with Alara. He suggested using a theoretical and untested method to stabilize the star using a series of gravitational slingshots. It was risky, and it required perfect execution from every team member. "Trust me," Jake implored, his eyes scanning the worried faces of his teammates. "We've come this far because we dared to be different. Let's go all the way." With a collective breath, the team coordinated their efforts, executing Jake's plan with precision. As the final moments ticked down, the simulation responded to their inputs, and the star system began to stabilize, much to the amazement of the onlookers. The crowd erupted in cheers as the announcer confirmed their success. Jake's team had not only saved the virtual civilization, but had also secured their top spot in the competition. The revelation of Jake's true power, his ability to see beyond the conventional, to innovate under pressure, and to inspire his team to trust in his human intuition, was now undeniable. As the team gathered around him, celebrating their victory, the respect and admiration in their eyes were clear. "You've changed the game, Jake," Lyra said, her voice thick with emotion. "You showed us that there's more to strength than speed or might." As the crowd began to disperse, Alara approached Jake, her expression one of pride and satisfaction. "You have done well, young human. Not only did you reveal your true power, but you also elevated those around you to do the same." Jake felt a swell of pride, tempered by the gratitude he felt towards Alara and his teammates. "It was all of us, Alara. We did this together, and we did it by embracing what makes us different." The Academy's heads, a council of various prestigious species, nodded in agreement, their earlier doubts about humanity's place in the galaxy dispelled by the display of ingenuity and leadership they had witnessed. As the event concluded, Jake's achievement was celebrated not just as a personal victory, but as a demonstration of humanity's unique contributions to the interstellar community. The Academy, inspired by Jake's performance, announced plans to integrate more human-based training programs, recognizing the value of diversity in thought and approach. The revelation of Jake's strengths had shifted the paradigm for all at the Academy, proving that sometimes the true power lies not in conforming to expectations, but in boldly defying them. The culmination of the gauntlet was upon them, and the arena buzzed with a palpable tension as teams prepared for the final battle. This event was designed to be the ultimate test of each team's tactical prowess and collective strength. For Jake and his teammates, it was their chance to solidify their position as true contenders, to prove that their successes were not flukes, but the result of genuine skill and innovation. The final challenge was a complex war simulation involving ground combat, aerial maneuvers, and strategic resource management. Teams would need to defend their bases while simultaneously attempting to outmaneuver and overpower their opponents. It was a battle that required both brawn and brains, and Jake's team was ready. As the simulation began, Jake assumed a central role in command. His teammates, having seen his strategic acumen in action, trusted him implicitly. They started on the defensive, conserving resources and studying their opponent's tactics, a strategy that Jake had insisted upon. His plan was to adapt their responses based on the other team's initial moves, allowing them to counterattack more effectively. Jake's human perspective provided a unique advantage. He noticed patterns and weaknesses in the opponent's strategies that others might have missed. Using this insight, he directed his team to execute a series of feints and diversions, misleading their rivals about their true strength and intentions. Halfway through the simulation, Jake's team shifted gears. With their opponents confused and off balance thanks to the earlier misdirections, they launched a coordinated strike. Combining their diverse abilities, they pushed forward, using both technology and raw power to breach defenses and score critical points. The battle grew intense, with every team pushing their limits. Jake's leadership was calm and focused, his commands clear even amidst the chaos. His teammates executed each strategy with precision, their trust in Jake's guidance evident in their flawless teamwork. As the final minutes ticked down, it became clear that Jake's team was pulling ahead. Their innovative tactics and adaptive strategies had overwhelmed even the strongest of their rivals. When the final buzzer sounded, the arena erupted into cheers. Jake's team had won the final battle, their victory a testament to their hard work and Jake's transformative leadership. As the team gathered to celebrate, the impact of their victory began to sink in. They had not only won the gauntlet, but had also changed perceptions about human potential in the galaxy. "You've done something incredible here, Jake," Thalia said, her voice filled with admiration and a hint of awe. "You've shown us all that the strength of a team lies in its ability to think differently, to adapt, and to trust in each other." Jake smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and unity. "We all did this together. Each of you brought something unique to the table, and that's why we succeeded." The Academy officials, including representatives from various interstellar councils, congratulated Jake and his team. Their performance had implications beyond the competition. It suggested a broader integration of human methodologies in training programs across the galaxy. As the celebrations continued, Jake felt a profound connection to his team and a greater sense of his place in the universe. He had come to the Academy as the underdog, the worst in his class, but he was leaving as a leader who had revealed not only his true power, but the power of embracing diversity and humanity in the vast expanse of space. The journey from doubt to victory was complete, and for Jake and his teammates, the future brimmed with possibilities. They had not just competed, they had inspired, led, and transformed, ensuring that the story of their success would echo as a beacon for future generations at the Academy.